I'm gonna play Rainbow Six. Fuck yeah, let's just do that. And then I'll record the other video and upload it. But yeah. Let's see what this is about. So it's the predator that is hiding in plain sight. So, Spectre Tech, hidden in plain sight. Oh, and
Anyone from the art commentary community, or ACC, will tell you it was always a hectic mess. This online collective of artists critiquing each other for their art had spiraled out of control over the years. The pockets of infighting between these creators lasted for so long that by the end, it left barely anyone standing. Most of the viewers couldn't even remember why it had begun. You could say that this was all predictable, but it was easy to lose focus in a swirling mess of videos and claims thrown back and forth. The calm voices of reason seemed to be a breath of fresh air. And one of them was Spoctor. Also known as Spoctor Tech, for many years, Spoctor's channel was a living success story. What began as a young artist poking fun at others had transformed into a pillar stone for his community. Between these two events were a flurry of devastating allegations that became infamous due to their scale and how vindictive the accusers turned out to be. The clearing of those allegations became somewhat of a gold standard in the community for years to come. And from then onwards, Spoctor changed his content and tried to be more neutral. He took a far more thoughtful and considerate view towards his subjects, something rarely seen in the ACC at all.
Join
Spoctor's presentation of
the
himself dubious.
Become
Unbeknownst to almost everyone, he was hiding a secret reminiscent of his past. When others called his nature into question, it was only a matter of time before that secret was finally revealed. Those who paid attention to Spoctor's story remember it as somewhat of a tragedy that came out of nowhere. Yet, throughout his career, there always seemed to be hints of what was going on. A man not exactly what he presented himself as, yet still insulated by his reputation.
Great tidings, Helldiver. The substance found in the glue may be the greatest gift of freedom since the discovery of Element 710.
Despite being pretty open about his emotions later down the line, Spoctor has never given us much insight into his early life. We know he was born April 10th, 2001, and for a long time his channel's About section only read saying he was an animation enthusiast, huge raptor lover. We're also aware he has ADHD and would later become a furry, maybe influenced by his online activity. Spoctor first began posting to YouTube under the name of Spatic Tech, as early as 2013. Don't get your hopes up though, these aren't much but mere videos of speed paints. It wasn't until late 2016 that he began posting more critical videos on his new channel, Spoctor Theory.
Allied destroyer coordinates
this
received.
kind of shit is comedy.
Initiating FTL jump to the Cirrus system.
Spoctor's videos came on platforms like DeviantArt, and the rants that those creators would make on each other. For a couple of months, he didn't see much, but his big break was from an arise.
what about the art community done? I haven't heard about them in the Batman.
Hellpods prime.
Nothing but bad things.
Community at that time, known as the animation meme community. This was a new generation of online artists who posted animations based on short clips of music. And as they were all pretty young, it's obvious that bad videos and pointless drama would happen. Spoctor's coverage was the perfect whirlwind, and these videos would launch his career into stardom. Even at this point, his takes appeared to be a lot more measured on serious topics. A pretty good sign for a 15-year-old, although he was still hiding behind a blue either for anonymity or to sound tough.
Yeah, but if you pay attention to what they're saying, it obviously doesn't promote schools. It's telling them to not let people touch them there. I mean, it's still a joke and it's taken lightheartedly, but if you take away the jokes behind it, the actual message in the lyrics is legit.
Even whilst blowing up off this drama, Spoctor didn't immediately cash in. He would often provide a variety of content, including gaming and videos about general art issues. But let's not sugarcoat it, he was still cheaply making fun of kids. Nothing out of the ordinary for that time, but it was his biggest series. Badly Done Videos was its name, and he would make very surface level critiques on videos made by children. His audience would then rip apart these subjects in their comment section. Within a year, Spoctor had gathered a very respectable subscriber count of around 70,000. Even at the age of around 16, he gained a pretty loyal fan base, and a community of like-minded ranters had opened up around him. One of them was a very early friend known as the named Junkie. Junkie was one of Spoctor's oldest friends, and actually preceded him in his style of rant videos. Spoctor would also befriend Fairghost, a pretty good editor for the
Let's
time,
go.
known for his series animation memes without music. Outside of those two, Spoctor had connections with a lot of other creators around the whole space. On April 10th, 2018, Spoctor reached his 17th birthday. 8 days later, his career was in ruins.
Damn. Jesus.
It was
What
on
they
that
do?
fateful day of April 18th that two
Right,
major
brother.
videos were released on Spoctor, both with the same title, A Warning, Stay Away from Spoctor Theory. The video with the most evidence was posted by Atari, another up-and-coming ranter whose videos were far more focused on art than drama. The other video was from a former friend of Spoctor's, who was once within his inner friend circles. Her name was Pentagon. Pentagon was certainly the more interesting of the two. Her channel was much smaller than most, and her content was the best. But her respect came from how friendly and understanding she was with other creators. That was what made it her real, and that was what made people stand up when she and Atari were cutting ties with Spoctor. Atari and Pentagon's videos levied 3 main allegations against Spoctor. They first showed some sexual DMs that Spoctor had only a month prior with an anonymous girl only described as a young teenager. The girl claimed Spoctor was trying to get her to hide her relationship with him from her boyfriend, and in the DM she said she was uncomfortable.
Fucking
yet did not
face.
stop. Spoctor asked nudes from this girl and sent nudes of himself.
Wait. Is she underage? I didn't hear.
Those levied 3 main allegations against Spoctor. They first showed some sexual DMs that Spoctor had only a month prior with an anonymous girl only described as a young teenager. The girl claims Spoctor was trying to get her to hide her relationship with him from her boyfriend.
Oh, never mind. Not based. I didn't hear the underage part. Holy shit. Sounds bad. Busy
And in
trying
the
to stay
DM,
alive.
She said she was uncomfortable, yet he did not stop. Spoctor asked nudes from this girl and sent nudes of himself to her. The next allegation came from his ex-girlfriend, who said that Spoctor had also ignored her discomfort and falsely claimed blackmail. She also claimed that Spoctor had sent inappropriate things to 13-year-olds. Pentagon also brought up a related allegation of Spoctor being weird around the 12-year-olds. The final set of allegations concerned Spoctor's public behavior. Spoctor had been promoting NSFW artwork and contests, despite never disclosing he was still a minor at the time. This was an issue because it could have repercussions for the adults unknowingly participating in sending NSFW to a minor. There was also a claim of Spoctor not paying his artists and trying to intimidate an art thief on DeviantArt. Pentagon's video was much shorter than Atari's, but it didn't matter if it was. This system of sword and shield was pretty effective. Atari was the sword with all the evidence, and Pentagon was the shield as a former friend of Spoctor's endorsing the allegations meant to watch. Both videos outright stated that Spoctor was a legitimate threat, a groomer, and a sex offender. Another thing that helped was that both videos were not being the end of the allegations. Atari said there were 5 other people who came forward, Pentagon upped that number to more than 7. Both videos quickly spread like wildfire throughout the art community, with several people coming out in support. Within a few hours, Spoctor posted a statement to his channel, in which he conceded
They're still
the
alive?
allegations made against him. He makes a few defenses, saying his actions were an accident and driven by hormones and irresponsible impulses. Yet the 183 voice wasn't alleviating much of the damage.
And I didn't see that when I put them in this situation where it's like, if I don't do what he's not gonna like me. And I look up to this guy, so
Yeah,
I
watch
should
out for that.
do what he's saying.
Within a few hours of the apologies upload, the like to dislike ratio was around 50%, and people were unsubscribing en masse. To make things worse, the parties behind the scenes who remained anonymous were unhappy with Spoctor's apology and decided to come out. The first of them was Spoctor's ex-girlfriend, Hosting, who made videos showing a lot more evidence than she had before. Not many new claims were made here, but some of this evidence went a lot more than before. The real move was just after, when the anonymous young teenager came out and showed a few more DMs. The evidence, though, was not the eye capture. It was her identity. The anonymous girl was known as Stories, another somewhat known branch of the community who had claimed multiple times publicly that she
Damn, I
was
accidentally
only
killed the
8 years
seat
old.
up
To
really.
the
Oh my
audience, this
god.
added such a darker undertone to the entire situation. Stories' video showed her scrolling through her DMs of Spoctor, showing new DMs that added to the fact that she was uncomfortable. And to remind you, Spoctor had sent her nudes and asked for some back. Over the next few days, many people came out to make their own videos, jumping on the trend and reiterating the allegations against Spoctor. It's unknown how many subscribers he lost exactly during these days, but we can make an estimated guess that it was over 10,000. The videos against Spocter began to rack up hundreds of thousands of views, and he received all the hate in the world for being this abusive, disgusting pedophile. But something wasn't right. Whilst the allegations against Spocter seemed damning on paper, there were issues. For one, no one who people took seriously believed Stories was 8. She'd claimed she was 8, but everyone apart from her fans and Pentagram wasn't buying that. Her content and how she acted was very unfamiliar to an 8-year-old. And I mean, of course, how on earth is an 8-year-old gonna be in the community making drama content and gaining a few thousand subscribers? There have been cases—
Wait, she was supposedly 8? What? Where are her parents at? This motherfucker keeps killing himself. Yeah.
Reinforcing. Freedom requires firepower. Request approved.
Let's see some bows that we got on this.
Requesting sentry. Ready to liberate. Activating jump pack. Extraction is available.
What's going on over there?
Sending in an eagle.
Administering freedom.
There's something here. Danger.
I'm gonna set up the help on the corner around there. Oh, I will keep on going. Keep on swinging. If I can get through. Damn, there's help bombs everywhere. Holy hell. Probably still. Alright.
Got a sample. Requesting air support.
No skins there. Man. They're still moving.
You may proceed to extraction when ready. Supplies.
What I do need are some stimmies. Stimulus check.
Requesting air support.
Level.
Attack underway.
Super destroyer leaving low orbit. Emergency extraction shuttle deployed. Reinforcement budget depleted. Freedom forever!
These niggas are playing all day.
T-minus 1 minute. Bug tunnel breach! For prosperity!
Run around that. Yeah.
ETA T-minus 30 seconds.
God, sword.
The very young people have managed to get a following whilst being critical of others. The best example would be LT Corbis or Soph, who was only around 11 to 12 when she started blowing up on YouTube. But 8 years old is such an insane jump. Stories did not act like an 8-year-old. Repeated references to stuff she experienced a few years back when she would have been like 4. Most of the adults suspected that she was in reality around 13 to 14 years old. But it's absurd that anyone believes an 8-year-old could be an actual public figure like this, and it wouldn't surprise me to know that it was later revealed as a lie. You'd think if Stories was actually 8 years old, the main accusers would be stressing the fuck out of that point. And there was never a DM shown of her saying that she was 8 to Spoctor. With Ghosty, the DM she showed said that her and Spoctor were 14 and 16 respectively, which is nowhere near enough to claim grooming or pedophilia. The claims in general were incredibly unreliable on further look. The main thing the accusers stressed was discomfort, yet in the screenshots barely any of that comes across. It's mostly just sexual DMs sent by Spoctor, and in some instances these people reciprocate to him. When you consider the allegation of discomfort, showing only one person's side of it is incredible cutting of context, and at the time where it was shown, it seemed like there was something more to it. When Stories claimed she was uncomfortable 3 times, Spoctor's responses were never shown at all, and she seems to be happy in the following DM. The other claims attached range from total hearsay statements with no evidence or reputable name attached to them to outright falsehoods. With the NSFW art contest, Spoctor had specifically clarified that he didn't want anything explicit or overtly lewd. So it wasn't really NSFW then, was it? It took a few days, but some of the bigger creators began to question the allegations against Spoctor. These included PK Russell, Manga Carmen, and Just a Robot. But it really started with Pondersprocket, who up until this point was a relatively unknown art YouTuber. Her video was vital in actually establishing the suspicion against these allegations, and she also talked to the artists who Spoctor accused of not paying. Ponder went deep into this wave of videos, going after everyone and debunking their points one by one, even the little kids who filmed their paper drawings as visuals. Regardless, there were now some serious questions towards the most serious claims against Spoctor by bigger YouTubers. They gave Spoctor a lifeline of sorts, and he began to talk. He came in contact with PK Russell and showed him the real DMs behind this very one-sided presentation by Stories. The real truth showed him being far more considerate towards Stories' discomfort and backing away. Spoctor would then come back to the public and retract.
It's kind of boring. Okay. That was a be cooler. I had to look up the Sam Hardy page. Please. It's also gonna be WWE things.
It's 1981. New President Ronald Reagan has just survived an attempt on his life. An emerging virus called HIV is becoming a growing concern, and workers at a wastewater treatment plant in Richmond, Virginia have just made a grisly discovery. An employee had been walking along the settling basin, a structure used to separate water from solid material, when he saw what appeared to be the body of a young woman. The police were called and the remains were recovered. The woman was young, short and slim, and had a tattoo on her arm reading, DR. A forensic analysis revealed that she had undergone a hysterectomy at some point in her life, which might point to pregnancy complications, treatment for ovarian cancer, or even darker, routine treatment at a psychiatric hospital in 20th century America. The hysterectomy didn't have anything to do with her death, however. That came about because of a bullet wound to the head. Other than the surface level information, nothing else could be gathered to tell this young woman's story. So, using 1981 technology, the police made a crude clay model of her head, depicting what she might have looked like before she passed, to see if the public might be able to identify her. But nobody ever came forward. With no leads and nowhere to look, the police just stopped investigating. Life would go on the same as it did before. Nobody would ever grieve this woman. Her story would never be told, and justice would never be served. She would never even have a name, only ever being referred to as the Richmond Jane Doe. And unfortunately, she's not a unique case. Currently, in the United States of America, there are more than 10,000 unidentified bodies. The idea of just coming across a body that never gets identified has to be one of the most disturbing concepts I can think of. In fiction, there's a common trope of an angry spirit haunting a place desperately trying to get somebody to tell their story. And these movies and books usually end with a tragic tale of their death finally being told, putting the ghosts at peace and allowing them to move on. Horror usually ends up being scarier than reality in most cases, but in this particular realm, reality is much darker than fiction.
Fuck it. I can't. We just gonna pay attention to it.
In real life, the body and the person that occupied it just stays lost forever. Their only memorials are scattered disconnected case files in different law enforcement agencies. In some cases, loved ones are desperately trying to get answers, unaware that the person they're searching for has already been found. But even darker than that, a lot of these people go unidentified because they've just been forgotten about, and the world callously moves on without them.
Damn.
When the Richmond Jane Doe briefly held the attention of law enforcement agencies in the early 1980s, criminal investigations mainly relied on traditional tangible evidence, like eyewitness accounts, fingerprints, and ballistics analysis, but a new movement had been gaining momentum. Instead of just looking for measurable evidence in individual cases, criminal profiling had police identifying characteristics of crimes that could point to the perpetrator's psychology in some way. This had law enforcement investigating previously overlooked aspects of crimes, like the degree of control used by the offender, the escalation of emotion in the act, and how organized or messy the crime scene was. Identifying these characteristics allowed police to not just categorize the sort of suspect they were looking for, but to also link different crimes together in a way they weren't previously able to using only traditional investigative techniques. But there was a problem blocking that last part from coming to fruition. Back in the early 1980s, law enforcement agencies were more or less working in isolation from one another. They all had their own specific procedures or paperwork and local files, and there usually weren't any protocols in place to share that information amongst themselves. This caused something called linkage blindness. If a serial offender committed a crime with striking signature characteristics and then went over to another county and did the same crime with the same signatures, those two cases wouldn't get linked together because the departments investigating them would be working in isolation. Even if they did share information, the documentation would be different and a lot of commonalities wouldn't be noticed because of that. This is what VICAP was intended to solve. In 1983, Los Angeles homicide detective Pierce Brooks would testify before Congress to advocate a radical new idea: a computerized database to track unsolved crimes that could be accessed by any law enforcement agency in the country. This database would be set up in such a way that the seemingly minute details of different crimes could be linked together, helping investigators make connections they wouldn't have previously been able to make. Brooks' idea was received enthusiastically, with the FBI fully picking up and funding the project. The database will be built and stored at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia in 1985, and while it may have started out with the thousands of different law enforcement agencies around the country having to mail in handwritten forms that would be digitized by hand in Quantico, the procedures would advance over time as the world became more connected, first through fax machines, and then through an interesting new technology called the Internet. In the 2000s, the FBI would launch VICAP Web, a fully internet-based version of the database that could be instantly accessed and browsed by law enforcement agencies. While VICAP Web was and is only able to be accessed by verified law enforcement users, the FBI would also create a much more limited but publicly accessible version of the database, which you can browse through a website hosted by the FBI. When we talk about things that are scary on this channel, there's usually two categories. Fictional horror tends to be very dramatic and solely relies on artistic elements.
See what analog horror is out there. You can't see this. Blooding. If you ever see it, that blood.
Acting strange. Run away, otherwise it'll tear your skin off. What? I'm joking, of course. Cats are such a cute pie. I love cats so much. I want to squeeze them until they pop. Warning. If you ever see an abnormal cat act.
I miss those days. Being all the
It is often said that the root of all fear is the unknown, the dark, the other, the hidden. With that often comes the advice to hide your monsters. The horror disappears once you can get a good look at the threat. But that wisdom, like all things, is not necessarily universal. The horror, the unknown,
doesn't always end with just seeing. Just because we're looking at it doesn't mean we can understand it. Call it what you like, the cosmic, the Lovecraftian, the eldritch. There is a certain type of horror that inspires more than just fear. It inspires awe, wonder, reverence, in addition to terror and dread. Other times, it simply inspires a kind of anxious confusion. When we look at something, some monster or entity or environment, and though the reflections of the light are hitting our eyes, we simply cannot comprehend it. It is too strange, too alien for us to fathom, to fully understand. All that we know is we no longer feel at ease. We no longer feel we are in the presence of something comfortable or familiar, and suddenly begin to think we would have much preferred this thing stay hidden in the shadows. Today, we're returning to the world of digital horror to explore a series of projects which, in one way or another, develop and employ this unusual form of incomprehensible horror, taking a deep dive into the dreamlike, low-res world of Bunny Cotton, the atmospheric planes of People Still Live Here, and the cryptic entities within Snapshot Null. Join me as we explore a horror that extends beyond fear, and be not afraid.
I thought this was like digital and like horror. We saw this one.
Pepto-Bismol Oreos, Peep Soup, and Dasani water, now vegetarian.
So consider adding these new favorites to your shopping list.
We
The fuck wasn't Dasani water that made an unvegetarian? I'm curious.
want to give you what you want, but first we need you to buy what we have.
From your friends at Barton's
Based. I'm gonna try that Pepto-Bismol fucking Oreo.
Warning. The United States government has issued a civil emergency message to all citizens. A national emergency has been declared.
Oh, so?
This is not a test. 3 days ago, a violent new viral outbreak, designated as IV-24, was first reported in Chicago, Illinois.
Damn
It has
Chirac.
spread rapidly through the surrounding regions and is now considered a nationwide threat.
Wait, but they shut it down, if anything. Put it like into like, so that no one can leave the state if it really was that infectious. Or they just shut off the half of the United States.
Initial symptoms may resemble a severe flu, including profuse sweating, chills, shivering, high fever exceeding 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and violent, bloody coughing. But unlike typical respiratory infection, and violent, bloody coughing.
Hunger for human.
But unlike typical respiratory infections,
Right.
SIV-20
So it's pretty much like a damn whatchamacallit, zombie virus, no?
24 completely shuts down the immune system within the first hour of exposure.
Jesus.
In some cases, within 15 minutes.
So you pretty much get AIDS if you have this. It's fucking
As
crazy.
the infection progresses, victims begin to suffer the following: acute strokes, severe internal bleeding, bleeding from the death follows rapidly after.
But death is not the end.
Within
Okay,
minutes
Rick
of cardiac
Toffin, chill.
arrest, victims experience an unexplained reanimation. These individuals become hyper-aggressive, unresponsive to pain, and attack any nearby non-infected person to spread SIV-24. Go home and stay indoors. Lock all doors and windows leading outside. Do not trust any strangers for any reason.
Spend your last days with your family.
Based. They consume you when they turn you into Based.
The National Guard and armed forces are being deployed alongside law enforcement. They have been authorized to use lethal force against any suspected infected, whether reanimated or not. Do not wait to evacuate once symptoms are visible in your area. You may not have the time. Stay tuned.
Let's see how the zombie apocalypse is going. Percent humidity. Fuck. Damn, bitch! I was watching the Weather Channel. What the fuck?
Warning. Warning. The United States government has issued a civil danger warning to all citizens.
So?
A national emergency is in effect.
Okay.
This is not a test. The infection is confirmed in all major U.S. cities and urban areas.
Shit!
Rural and remote areas are becoming the only remaining safe zones. Remain sheltered in your homes. The infected have been analyzed and they have no proof of brain activity or heartbeat. Whether the infected are considered alive or human is being debated. Regardless, they are extremely aggressive and dangerous. If they cut or bite you, you will become infected. There is no known cure for this infection. Avoid contact with the infected at all costs. The National Guard and armed forces that have been deployed are now under a shoot-on-sight protocol. If you are outside when approached by military forces, you will be considered hostile and neutralized.
Damn.
Do not go outside or you risk being infected or shot and killed by the military. Only leave your shelter when you receive an all clear.
I mean, that wouldn't happen. They'd have to have safe zones and little entry points because they can't shoot indiscriminately. They'd have a little safe zone that would be heavily guarded, but they check if you got like attacked or anything.
Signal. When you receive the all clear, you must go to a nearby military shelter. You will be checked for infection and evacuated from the area. Stay tuned.
Alright, that makes sense. They want them to kill everything that might be infected and is rushing them that way. They're telling panic civilians like, hey, chill. Chill. Daddy, chill. That's what they're pretty much telling them.
Warning. Warning. The United States government has issued a shelter in place to all citizens. A national emergency is in effect. This is not a test. The SIV-24 virus has been confirmed in multiple countries in all regions of the world. The United Nations has deployed peacekeepers globally except for the American continent. They are working to subdue the spread of infection. Anyone who has not evacuated into a military shelter should remain in their homes. Anyone caught outside of their homes or military shelter will be killed by the military. If you see anyone, including friends or family, show any of the following symptoms, isolate them immediately and prepare for the worst. Profuse sweating, chills, shivering, high fever exceeding 1. The National Guard and armed forces are being deployed alongside